in case you say you are not ready to have a baby, or you need to give time to your career, and you're concerned about your oocyte qualities, we always have an option called the social freezing or oocyte freezing. So it's, I mean, I don't know if you've seen, a lot of actresses have come forward talking about it, and it's
Yes.
actually a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do not plan to marry someone, or you're not planning to have a kid at
Correct.
any time soon, and you're in your 30s, and
Yeah, you can have a
you can
backup and
always freeze your eggs.
Mhm.
And especially, when we were learning about frog embryos and chick embryos, it was fascinating how a single cell is able to, divide and form such a complex body, a whole new living organism,
Right, right.
right? And that is such a fascinating thing. I mean, everything in nature is fascinating, but this is something that caught my attention, and I'm like, how?
A single cell can
Exactly, a
divide,
single
make a
cell,
copy of
and in
itself.
a few months you have a
Yeah.
complex
Yes,
system, a body
yes.
that is
And to
formed.
add on to that, they know which cell to form brain cells, which
I
the
know,
heart cells, which
exactly.
veins.
The
Amazing, right?
I know.
Okay. How do you exactly suck out this single sperm using that microcontroller? Like, which part do you guys suck? Like,
Okay,
from
so
where
what we
exactly?
do is, if a sperm is swimming,
Mm-hmm.
we try to keep the micro injection on top of the sperm,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of give it a nick at the tail. So
Okay.
it is believed that all the fertilizing factors are present in the tail of the sperm. So when we do that, the membrane of the tail gets disrupted, and there's easy exposure of those factors.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the tail we you know suck in
Okay.
the this thing, because even naturally, it's a head that
Mm-hmm.
first goes inside
Yeah,
and
you keep the head
fertilizes.
exposed. Okay.
Yes, and
Mm-hmm.
then we inject it in
Mm-hmm.
such a way that it's head first
Mm-hmm.
and deposit inside the
So,
oocyte.
how careful is this procedure? Like, now you sucked up the sperm through its
Yes,
tail.
yes,
Now you have to expose it over the egg, right? How
yes.
fast is this process? Like, what is the time gap between this process of sucking the sperm tail to exposing it over the egg cell?
It's very less. So
Okay.
at once we say select one sperm, we go to the oocyte, so it will be usually kept in the same dish,
Mm-hmm.
and we just insert it. It hardly takes less than a minute. So I'd like to just share an
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
experience, if you don't mind. So before I worked in Mangalore, I have worked in different cities, but I never stayed long enough to be able to see a live baby. So I
Okay.
was always, I've seen photos of the babies that were born,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never seen a live one, held one.
Oh,
So
okay.
once I came to
Interesting.
Mangalore,
Mm-hmm.
so it's been around 2 years that I'm working here. So there was this patient that comes with a baby, and the consultant calls me to her room to see the baby, and I just walk in, and it is such a magical experience. The parents are sitting there holding the baby, the father is holding the baby, and I look at the baby, and it gives me that smile.
Okay.
It's
Did it give
just
you goosebumps?
exactly, my eyes started tearing up, and
Okay.
it is a very special moment.
Mhm. Hey guys, welcome to QED podcast and hope you guys are doing great. And I'm back with a very interesting topic today, and not just interesting, but also really important. And this is important now more than ever if you look at the demographic trends around the world, especially in countries like Japan, South Korea, and Western countries, where the population is decreasing. It's not just decreasing, the experts are predicting there could be a very sudden collapse. So the topic for today's conversation is about embryology, things around infertility treatments and technologies, and things in and around. And to talk about this topic, we have a very special guest,
Hello.
Shifali Suvarna. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yes, and she is an embryologist, and we did our bachelor's together in microbiology, and then she moved on to do embryology, master's in embryology from
Yes.
Manipal University.
Yes.
And I suppose you have 2 to 3 years of clinical experience
Yep.
working in, what do you call that? Fertility clinic or infertility clinic?
We call it an IVF clinic. Yeah,
IVF clinic.
fertility clinic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This podcast is called Embryology. Embryology is nothing but a study of life forms, early life forms. And in today's context, the embryology, what we would be referring to is a sophisticated art or technology of making new babies.
Yep.
Yes. Suppose you had to explain
Yes.
what you work on or
Huh.
what is embryology to your grandmother,
Okay.
how would you do it?
Okay. So in a vague term.
Yeah, victim. Like suppose this podcast, what if people who have no idea on what is embryology, what is this about?
Okay.
So suppose you directly started with the oocyte, gamete, or something.
Yeah, I get it.
It things may go overhead. So
Yes. Yes.
how would you explain it to your grandmother?
To explain it in a very vague term, so what happens within our body, what is necessary to form a embryo or form a bruna, as we say in our local language or in
Mhm.
Hindi as well.
Mhm. What do you call it? Bruna.
Bruna, yeah, I mean your fetus is an embryo, right? So sometimes what happens is your body has certain problems because of which the embryo is not forming, or it's not able to implant. So whatever is there within your body, we try to mimic it in the lab and try to form embryo in the lab. So once you have the embryo that is nicely developed, we again put it back into the mother's uterus, so it can just stick to the endometrium, start developing, and thus the woman can get pregnant.
Hmm. So you guys make babies happen.
Yes, we
I mean, is that
aid in.
aid in? Okay,
Oh, yeah.
cool. So this podcast is especially made for three types of people. If you are a biology student or student who are pursuing medicine, would like to get into embryology in the future, or is curious to know what goes into the life or work of an embryologist, uh, this is a podcast you don't want to miss. And secondly, this is for those who are concerned or curious about infertility, um, and things around infertility or fertility health, on treatment options, affordability, what goes inside the lab, of the fertility clinic. So if you're curious about this is a podcast for you. Yeah. Thirdly, this is for people like me who are curious about anything. Yes, this is for you. I want to break the ice with this question. So I told my friend that I would be doing a podcast with an embryologist.
Okay.
So he had a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
My friend is pretty tall. He's 6 feet tall.
Okay.
Pretty fair skin. Pretty very creative,
Okay.
smart, highly intelligent,
All right.
athletic, and highly testosterone driven,
Okay.
body, like trait or something like that. So he was asking if he can do a living by depositing his sperms in a sperm bank,
Okay.
and he's ready to do it for full time. Is it
Uh,
possible for him to do a living?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
But it's not a living. So we have a regulatory body in India that has come up with a certain regulations.
Okay.
So according to which a donor, or as if he wants to donate his semen, obviously he's going to be a donor. So he has to contact a sperm bank,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a rule that a donor can only donate to a particular commissioning couple.
Okay.
So maybe he'll be only able to donate once.
Okay. Is it in demand thing? Like only if there is a demand from the couple side, he can donate, or he can donate anytime.
No, he can donate to the sperm bank.
Okay.
But the thing is, he cannot keep doing it for different couples. So, say there's a couple XYZ that is in need of going forward with the IVF treatment, and say the consultant is advised them due to, very poor male factor or no sperm in his analysis,
Okay.
should have counseled him for donor sperm. In that case, this donor, say donor ABC, can only donate his sperm to that particular couple, XYZ. Now,
Okay.
say that couple has used his spermatozoa, which he'll be discreet. Okay.
Okay.
So, what happens is when he goes to a bank, the bank is going to, analyze his sample, ask him to do various kinds of tests to ensure that there's
Mhm.
no sexual transmitted diseases or,
Mhm. It's
anything
healthy
of.
sperm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Healthy sperm. They're going to note down his profile features, like you
Mhm.
said, his height, his skin color, and
Mhm.
everything else, his weight, his qualification as well.
Mhm.
But once that is done, the commissioning couple does not have any details on who the donor is.
Okay, they can just see the traits of the
Exactly.
person.
Yes. So that is just to maintain the anonymity.
Mhm.
So what happens is, now say that couple XYZ has used up a sample, in
Mhm.
their IVF journey, and they have conceived. So nobody.
He no more can donate.
Yes,
Oh.
correct. And you can only donate next when you know that IVF cycle has failed. The couple wants to try again with a donor sperm.
Mhm.
Maybe that time he can give his sample for the same couple.
Got it. That
So
means.
you cannot actually have a living, but it's like
Mhm.
maybe a one time or two time things. But
Okay.
it has to be
Only
to
for
the,
one couple,
yeah,
not more
same
than one
commissioning
couple.
couple.
So
Yes.
genetically can't father more than
Yeah.
one couple. What if
Yes.
that couple wants to have one more embryo? I mean, one more IVF.
Then
One
it's
more baby
possible. That's
possible. Just
possible.
one couple.
Yeah, but you have to make sure that it's the same couple. You
Mhm.
cannot give, donate
Mhm.
your sperm sample to two different
So
couples.
what is the financial transaction like? What is there any range? I mean, is there any? I mean, is there a market for sperm from that donor trait? Suppose, as I said, these traits.
Hmm.
Is there any competition from the customer, which from the couple side, to get that spermatozoa? Is there any? Do you know any
Uh,
financial aspect of it? No
no,
idea. Okay,
not.
I was just
Uh,
curious.
no. So what happens is, sometimes we look into the complexion of the patient. Now, you do not want a couple, say the complexion is dusky. You do not want a donor sample where the donor is fair.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the baby is born fair, then it raises question, doesn't it? So we try
Mm-hmm.
to, whatever trait of the donor is there, we try to match it with the couple, so that when the baby is born, they do not look much different from the couple.
Correct.
Because usually what happens is, the couple, in most of the cases, want to be discreet. They do not want people to know that they have undergone an IVF cycle, or the families, or the society to know that
Mm-hmm.
it's not their gamete that was used, maybe
Mm-hmm.
sperm or ovum. So in that case, they try to match it. Maybe the height, maybe the complexion. So that is one thing. Yes, blood group, though we have to match it. But yeah, this is one thing. So that is something we look into to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that,
Okay, this is how sperm banks work. Okay,
yes,
I mean, is there any bank or repository just like we have sperm bank? Is there any egg bank?
yes, we do.
Okay.
So we have banks that preserve oocytes from donors. Again, there it's the same thing. One donor can only you know donate to one commissioning couple. So yeah. So another thing that you need to take care if you're a donor
Mm-hmm.
is that the Indian government has come out with a regulation. So if you are a male who wants to donate his sperm, you need to be within the age of 21 to 55. And if you are a female who wants to donate your eggs, you need to be within the age limit of 23 to 35.
Got it.
So that's
Okay.
something, you have to make
Mm-hmm.
sure.
So let's talk about infertility
Okay.
and fertility health.
Okay.
It's I looked at the statistics. It's pretty concerning,
Yes, it is.
especially for my male friends. I looked at the statistics where I there was a comparison between two men from two different timeline. One is from 1970, one more is 2024, and they looked at the semen output, and it was exactly half, and even testosterone level is also decreasing. Like I don't know if if it has any direct or indirect effect on infertility, testosterone level in
Yes,
male.
it does.
that seems to be also decreasing. Not just that, the number of sperms in semen is also decreasing, and semen quality is also decreasing. Like, how bad is this situation?
Okay, so there was a recent study that was done wherein over the last decade it was seen that the sperm count has been decreasing very rapidly. So the most believed reason is the lifestyle factor.
Mm-hmm.
So it could include excessive consumption of alcohol,
Okay.
excessive smoking, or
Mm-hmm.
chain smokers, or even the food that we consume. Now we are in this generation wherein there's a lot of junk food, and we tend to, even if we try to have vegetables, it's filled with pesticides and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that could be one of the reason.
What do you think of like, there are, myths? I don't know if it's a myth or not.
Okay.
uh, Increase in, usage of cell phones, digital gadgets which they
Yeah.
carry in their pockets. Does
Yes.
that have any effect on the balls?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Especially the radiation that is
Mm-hmm.
emitted.
Mm-hmm.
So that does affect the semen quality. That's why it's
Oh, is
suggested
there any
that.
scientific study over that?
Yeah,
Like,
there
it's
are.
confirmed.
Yes,
It's
yes,
confirmed. It's not a
yeah.
myth.
No, it's not a myth.
Oh,
So that's why
okay.
it's suggested that especially men, when they use their laptop, it's suggested not to place the laptop directly on your lap and give a lot of exposure. Because the radiation is very close to your testes, and it could affect the sperm, especially create DNA fragmentation in the sperm. Also, it is seen that excessive heat exposure
Oh,
to
okay.
the testicular region could again cause higher amount
Hmm.
of DNA fragmentation in sperm.
I
So
have
that's
heard
this. Yes.
this thing. Like, is there any uh, like, is wearing a tight underwear has any
Yeah.
effect on sperm production? It
Yes.
does.
Yes, because it puts in a lot of pressure on the testes, and
Okay.
there's a lot of heat, I
Okay,
presume.
trapped.
Yes,
If it's
trapped. So that's why it's suggested to wear
okay.
boxes.
Okay, so I
When
need
yeah.
to confidential. Okay, so wearing tight underwears
Can
does
also,
effect have an
yes.
effect on sperm output.
Yes.
So you would suggest, to increase the quality of sperms, as a male, I need to cut down, like, one need to cut down, uh, if they're drinking alcohol, they have to drink. I mean, they have to cut down alcohol consumption, smoking,
Yes.
proper sleep,
Yep.
uh, uh, less exposure of, uh, digital gadgets close
Yes.
to the testis.
Yep.
Do not place laptop over your lap for a long
Yes.
time. And what about food? Like, what uh, does consuming a specific food or supplements
Okay.
have dramatic increase or decrease in sperm output?
Okay. So, since I just work in embryology, I cannot tell much about it. But
Mm-hmm.
to my knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
a consultant would be a better person to answer this.
Okay.
But to my knowledge, yes, because you can start having food with, I mean, start shifting to healthier food. Like if
Okay.
you're too much into junk food, try shifting to homemade food, or balanced diet. And also you can try taking fruits or food that is rich in antioxidants.
Antioxidants.
Yes, so it could try to reverse that reactive oxygen species that causes the DNA fragmentation, and you can get a better lot
What
of
is DNA
spermatozoa.
fragmentation?
Okay, so usually for example, if you talk in the scenario of a spermatozoa, you
What is
have
spermatozoa?
okay. So spermatozoa is mainly the male gamete that is responsible for fertilizing an egg.
Okay.
Okay, so it is this sperm. It's a small microscopic organism. That's the smallest cell.
Which evolves into sperm. It is
Yes.
the can call it s- uh, s- immature sperm.
You have the spermatogonial cells. Those are the immature sperm. So it goes through a process called spermatogenesis,
Mm-hmm.
where a sperm is produced, and it matures. It goes to the epididymis, which is a part of the male reproductive system, where it gets matured and it is ejaculated out. All right. So this sperm, it's microscopic, and it's the smallest cell in our body. Well, it's an interesting fact because the oocyte is
The
considered
biggest
to be
one.
the biggest cell in the body, and the union is between the smallest cell in human and the biggest cell
Wow. Interesting fact.
in
Yeah.
the body. Yes. So usually what happens is every cell, as you know, contains DNA in it, right? So sometimes what happens is when there's too much stress, something called reactive oxygen species, in the body, these DNAs, they break. Now DNAs are supposed to be intact for the genetic information to be intact, and to be able to fertilize an egg. But sometimes, due to all the factors that we mentioned, consumption of alcohol or too much radiation exposure or heat exposure, there is fragmentation in the DNA. So such sperm are not able to fertilize the egg, and even if they do fertilize, do not form a quality embryo that is worth implanting and giving birth, or giving a live birth, or giving a normal birth. So it's important that we try to reduce this. So there we have certain tests that we do in our labs called the DNA fragmentation tests.
Okay.
So through which you can make out what percentage of the sperm cells have fragmented DNA. So the uh, benchmark is around 25 to 30%.
Of
Like you shouldn't have more than 25 to 30%
fragmented
of
cells.
fragmented cells. Yes.
I mean, does having lot of mental stress have an effect on sperm output, like stress, like work stress,
Yes.
or
Okay.
uh,
Sperm output, in the sense, you mean ejaculation, or the production of
like
sperm?
what is the contribution of stress, like work stress, mental stress,
Okay.
on infertility,
All right.
both in case of female as well as males?
Any stress is not good for the body.
Mhm.
So one of the factors that affect the gamete quality is also said to be stress.
What is the biological clock for of fertility in men? Like, can they
Okay.
impregnate egg like throughout the life? Like
Yes.
even the
Yes.
90-year-old
Yes.
uh,
So
can.
the
Mhm,
thing with males is, they produce sperm throughout their life.
mhm.
It's not like women. So women are born with a limited set of oocytes, and they start getting released, or they start ovulating, when they attain menarche. And as age passes, that ovarian reserve is going to get lower and lower, and it is seen that post 35 years of age, the oocyte quality also reduces, as well as the chances of abnormal pregnancies are higher in such
Okay.
cases. But that's not the case in male. So it's seen that usually after the age of 45, 50, the quality of this sperm might be a little poor,
Mhm,
but yeah, the production still goes on.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
So there's
So, as
no.
an embryologist, what is the good range for women who is thinking of having a baby?
Okay.
Is like is a good range of age. Like, what's a good range to plan for pregnancy? Like
Okay.
after that, it's pretty kind of risky. Is not recommended by an embryologist.
Okay. So ideally, this question can be better answered again by a consultant.
Okay.
But to my knowledge, as I told you, after 35, the quality of eggs start decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
And also, there's this interesting fact that I had heard from one of our consultants,
Mm-hmm.
who said that Asian ovaries age 7 years faster than Caucasian ovaries. That's one now. So you cannot
That
always.
means 35 minus 7,
Yeah. So say uh,
28 something.
Caucasian ovaries or oocytes in the age of 42 is equivalent to an Asian
Okay.
ovary or this thing of the age 35,
So you mean Europeans can have a healthy baby even when
even
they're
for a
40?
little longer. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not the
Okay.
case
It
in
depends on
it.
the demographic.
Yes,
Okay.
it depends on the
Interesting.
demography, and also individual
Genetics.
parameters
Okay.
or profile. But this is
Mm-hmm.
one interesting fact that I had heard from one of our consultants. And if you look into it, then Asian women, yeah, will have
Okay.
to. But in case you say you are not ready to have a baby, or you need to give time to your career, and you're concerned about your oocyte qualities, we always have an option called the social freezing or oocyte freezing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, I mean, I don't know if you've seen a lot of actresses have
Mm-hmm.
come forward talking about it, and it's
Yes.
actually a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do not plan to marry someone, or you're not planning to have a kid at
Correct.
any time soon, and you're in your 30s, and
Yeah, you can have a
you can
backup and
always freeze your eggs,
Mm-hmm.
because the quality of the eggs are going to be good, and they're going to be frozen.
Mm-hmm.
And later in life, whenever you want to,
Mm-hmm.
whenever
Interesting.
you're ready, or you want to have a baby, you can always thaw them and you know develop.
How is that egg freezing technology? I mean, are people in India are adapting to that? Like, especially, let's take our own locality, Mangalore.
Okay.
Is there any services available here for women to
Yes.
freeze their eggs and
Yes.
postpone pregnancy?
Yeah. So every IVF clinic,
Mm-hmm.
to my knowledge, has this option available.
Mm-hmm.
The only part is, I think, financial aspect that's a little difficult,
Okay.
because according to my knowledge, once you freeze your egg, you have to like pay every year for the
Mm-hmm.
renewal.
Subscription.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
another thing I have to add here
Mm-hmm.
is, when we have cancer patients,
Okay.
so you know how they undergo chemotherapy and radiotherapy, right? So that causes the cells in the ovaries, or oocytes, to die off, or the quality of the oocytes go. So in such cases, those patients say there are unmarried women, or this can apply to even males.
Got
What
it.
we do is we preserve the gametes in such case, be it sperm or oocyte,
Before the
before the
chemotherapy.
chemotherapy, so that the quality is preserved, and they also have a chance after their treatment to have a healthy baby. So yeah. And
Okay.
so apart from such scenarios wherein oncology patients who freeze their gametes before any treatment,
Mm-hmm.
apart from that, if you look at general population, I don't think, especially what I've seen in Mangalore, is not many women come forward for the
Mm-hmm.
freezing. I'm not sure if it's because of
But they come
lack of
for.
awareness that
Mm-hmm.
uh, something like this is possible, wherein you can
Mm-hmm.
freeze your eggs and have a baby later. But yeah, I think that's something we can create
Yeah.
awareness about.
So you up for it? Like, what do you think? Like, what is your opinion on delaying pregnancy and for egg freezing and having planning baby at 40s? Would that be a good idea?
Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't encourage it, like
Mm-hmm.
take it up as very lightly. Only in cases where you are not mentally ready, or you have to put your career first. In such cases, yes, but not like a
Mm-hmm.
routine thing, like
Yeah.
okay, chalta hai. You take it
Mm-hmm.
lightly. It's a blessing actually, especially
Mm-hmm.
now women have come so forward, and they're planning their careers, and they're busy, and you cannot let a biological aspect stop you, or change your career path. So in that case, this is actually a really good blessing. You can preserve, yes, you can preserve the quality of your egg. And in future, if you're you know if you want to have a baby in your late 30s, or 40s, wherein your chances naturally might be a little low,
So
in
this
such
can
cases,
change the whole
yes,
landscape. Like,
yes,
women can. This technology can enable women to stay longer in their
yes,
20s and 30s to their career
yep,
and have babies in their 40s by freezing the
yes,
eggs. And
yep,
in this year's Nobel Prize was awarded in the similar lines. The one who worked on female contraceptive, the
okay.
impact of female contraceptive on workforce, like this changed. I mean, this allowed more women into the workforce. The effect
Huh.
of the impact of female contraceptives.
Contraceptives.
Yeah. So I mean, if this technology, like the egg freezing, gets public adoption more and more, or
Yes.
maybe cryopreservation is getting more affordable,
Huh.
this can change the demographic or the setting. Okay,
Yes.
interesting times ahead. Do you have any myths that you want to burst regarding fertility or regarding embryology?
Um.
Like general myths in public that.
Okay.
Uh,
So I think one of the general myth people have
mhm.
is, I don't know if it's the influence of certain movies or
Okay.
whatever it is, that your gametes get mixed up
Hmm.
and all that stuff. So people are actually concerned a little about it. But as an embryologist, we make
What do you
sure.
mean by gametes getting mixed up?
Okay, so they are concerned that, okay, what if it's not my gamete that is being used to make the embryo?
Hmm. Okay,
Say,
in the lab. Okay.
yes,
Okay. Okay.
say if there is a person XYZ was given
Mm-hmm.
his sperm sample.
Mm-hmm.
So they are concerned, what if we use some other sperm sample, say given by ABC?
Okay.
Just,
What
to
if doctor inserted his own sperm?
exactly,
There has
exactly.
been
Yeah,
cases.
there has been a documentary, I think,
Yeah.
on Netflix about it, and
Okay.
there are movies that have come up
Yeah. Yeah.
showing this very casually.
I know one doctor in US. He got an Ig Nobel Prize, like when like parody Nobel Prize
Haha.
in medicine for impregnating over 60 eggs on
With
his own
this,
sperm, and he is
yeah.
nicknamed. I mean, there's a funny name, Sperminator.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. I think almost everyone in that town was like half brother or half
Yeah, right.
sisters. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. You remember when I told you the donor sperm? One donor can
Only one dose.
only
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
donate to a single commissioning
Mm-hmm.
couple. I think that rule came up to avoid such confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a single donor gives to a lot number of commissioning couple,
Yeah, that
and
may eventually lead inbreeding in the
exactly,
future.
exactly, because you're going to use it at a particular area. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
use that sample in particular clinic to a particular set of patients who live in that particular area, and you never know, because that anonymity is maintained about the
Mm-hmm.
donor, and the kids sometimes might fall in
Yeah,
love or marry each other, but they're unaware that they're
yeah,
half
yeah.
brothers or sister. Maybe that's one of the reason.
There are some cases when that happened. I
Not
mean,
that
are
I'm
there?
aware
No,
of,
okay.
but yeah,
Possible, strong
there's a strong
possibility.
possibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we have come up with that rule, and which I agree is a very good rule that has come out.
True. Right.
So
So,
yeah, talking about the myth, so
mm-hmm.
that's one of the myths. But there are a lot of technologies that have come up in an IVF lab.
Okay.
So we have something called RFID, radio frequency identification.
What is that?
So here what happens is you have a set of consumables that you use for a particular patient.
Mm-hmm.
You put in a radio frequency tag in each of the consumables,
Okay.
and that is connected to the server of the hospital that has the database of your entire patients.
Hmm.
So that makes sure that at one time you're only using gametes of a single patient. So if even by mistake or error you use another gamete, there's an alarm that is sent to every level, be it your head or every level in your organization. So that ensures that there's no mixing up of gametes. Apart from that, in every procedure that we do, we make sure that there are two embryologists present. So there's double witnessing. So I
Okay.
might be working very carefully with my complete 100% concentration, but there's always going to be another embryologist who's going to cross check what I'm doing. So
Oh,
that
you guys
again,
take that seriously.
yes, it is, sir, because you do not know the legal complication that can occur. I mean, patient come to us with that trust, right? Because they want their own genes to come forward. That's why they pay so
Yeah,
much.
that's
They
why we
go through,
reproduce in the first
exactly.
place.
They go through so much financial stress. They go through so much mental stress. Come every day, take injections on a daily basis.
Okay.
And when that happens, it becomes a responsibility to make sure nothing like that happens, wherein there's a change in
Mhm.
gametes.
Talking about myths, what do you think about contribution of male and female infertility? I mean, in Indian society, there is a blame game happening, right?
Yes.
Which where the society is not much educated on biology, or especially on the gamete side, or what is exact statistics on infertility cases? Like
Okay.
you work in the clinic, you have seen the cases.
Yes.
Uh, who do you like? I mean, what's the blame game? Like, I mean, what exactly is the percentage?
Okay. So if you look at the statistics, 30% of the infertility cases that come are mainly or solely the female factor, 30% are solely the male factors, and there are other percentage wherein it's mixed, where both of them are to be
Blame.
blamed.
Not
But
blame, sorry,
s-
responsible for,
yeah, are
yeah.
responsible. So but there's a scenario that is especially in Indian
Mhm.
families, which we might see, wherein the female is blamed or cursed for it, that you're not able to give us a grandchild, or you're not
Mhm.
able to give us a child. This
Mhm.
is something that we need to educate people on, that it's equal responsible. I mean, the
Yeah,
cost could be equally
yeah, it's 30-30%.
distributed
Mm-hmm.
between the male and the female. So
Yeah.
unless you go to a IVF clinic or any other clinic,
Mm-hmm.
you consult a doctor, and they give a series of tests to be
Mm-hmm.
done, you know um,
I mean, even if it's their
between.
fault, they shouldn't be blamed. It's like, yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but you cannot just blame a female, or you
Yeah.
cannot just always presume that it's because of
Mm-hmm.
the female.
Yeah.
You need to get the tests done. You need to find what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a treatment
Mm-hmm.
according to the profile of the couple,
Mm-hmm.
and then go
Yeah.
ahead with
How
it.
do you guys diagnose infertility? Like, whether like when couples come in for the
Okay.
clinic,
Huh.
they have no idea like who is like what is happening. Like,
Yeah.
is it because of my low sperm count? Is it because of their non-functional ovary or
Okay.
oocyte
I
or
know.
fallopian
Yeah.
something? How do you guys diagnose infertility? I mean, do you guys take tests on both of them simultaneously,
Okay, so this part is actually done by the consultant. So our
okay.
work is only to
Yeah, what do you know, like how it's gonna,
handle the
yeah,
gametes.
yeah.
So as far as my knowledge
Mm-hmm.
goes, there are certain tests that are given to both the females and the male. Different hormonal levels, and in females we have something called the AFC, antral follicular count.
Okay.
So there are different tests done, there are different scans done, and you have a level called AMH. So that tells you, what the oocyte reserve in the female could be.
Mm-hmm.
So that determines, whether it could be a female factor, or once you get the hormone test done for the males, or semen analysis done based on how the semen parameters are, or how the hormone level are. According to my
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, these are the tests that are done,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know if there is like more to add to this, or
Mm-hmm.
I
Got it.
best person to consult is a consultant or
Okay.
gynecologist who has
So,
a fellowship or
mm-hmm.
speciality
So
in
these things are not taken
infertility.
care by the embryologist.
No,
Okay,
no.
embryologist is after the fusion of gametes only.
Exactly. We
Okay.
just look after the gametes. We make sure
Mm-hmm.
there's fertilization happening, and we take care of the embryos for 5 to 6 days in our lab.
Got it. So I have some vague idea about infertility now.
Okay.
So let's move on to embryology as a career.
All right.
Okay, so as an embryologist, how your day looks like
Okay.
what do you do, like in the clinic?
So if you look at the life of an embryologist,
Mm-hmm.
so talking about us, it starts around 8:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we go to our labs. So our labs are like very sterile. So you have fresh air, filtered air that comes in, and there are different cycles of fresh air per hour that
Mm-hmm.
keeps coming to maintain that sterility. And we have equipments like laminar airflow, wherein it's like a workstation
Mm-hmm.
which makes sure that there's extreme, like, very
Okay.
good sterility
Mm-hmm.
when you're handling the gametes or embryos. So yeah, and even when we get into the lab, we have a separate sterile scrubs that we wear. we have a hair cap, and we have mask to cover our face.
Mm-hmm.
And also one thing that especially embryology, I mean, it's, I think even the consultants do that, even the nurses do that.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we do not have much makeup on, not much, we do not have
Mm-hmm.
any makeup on,
Okay.
or nail paints or anything,
Mm-hmm.
because, or perfumes of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is,
Why is that so?
these items, they release volatile organic compounds
Mm-hmm.
that is bad for the embryo.
Okay.
So these are like aromatic compounds which we try to avoid
Mm-hmm.
in the lab. And yep, and we have different procedures that we go through.
Mhm.
We keep checking the embryos. We once there is ovum pickup, so we have
Mhm.
something called a procedure that happens in the OT,
Mhm.
wherein the consultant tries to derive ovum from the ovaries, and it's given to us, and we screen through them, wash them,
Mhm.
and prepare the sperm sample. This is how our day
Nice.
goes.
Okay. Interesting. You guys deal with gametes and
Yes,
embryos and
yes,
microscope.
yes,
Okay.
microscope.
Interesting. So yeah, what really I mean, we did microbiology.
Yeah,
I think you are the only person in our class who did embryology.
yes.
What influenced you to take up embryology?
So I don't know if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were in our bachelor's, our combination was chemistry, microbiology, zoology. So I was majorly interested in microbiology and zoology at that point, and chemistry was just add on top.
Yeah.
One subject that was
Yeah.
compulsory. But in zoology, we had a topic on embryo development. We had studied about chick embryos and
Mhm.
frog embryos, and
Yeah.
we had also had a experiment when we had to get a fertilized
Yeah.
egg, and
Correct. Correct.
that was we had to take it. We had to
Yeah. Study them. Yeah.
study them,
And
stain it, and fix it on a
correct.
slide, and that
Correct.
is very fascinating. And especially when we were learning about frog embryos and chick embryos, it was fascinating how a single cell is able to divide and form such a complex body, a whole new living organism,
Right. Right.
right? And that is such a fascinating thing. I mean, everything in nature is fascinating, but this is something that caught my attention, and I'm like, how?
A single cell can
Exactly, a
divide,
single
make a
cell,
copy of
and in
itself.
a few months you have a
Yeah.
complex
Yes.
system, a body
Yes.
that is
And
formed.
to add on to that, they know which cell to form brain cells, which
I
the
know,
heart cells, which
exactly,
veins.
the
Amazing, right?
I know the
Like,
primitive streak, how the nervous
yeah,
system is
nervous
formed. It's
system.
amazing. So that
Yeah.
is what actually caught my attention. Apart from
Mm-hmm.
that, I was also interested in virology
Mm-hmm.
because we had microbiology,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
somehow I got a more push towards embryology,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned that there was a course available in Manipal
Okay.
on embryology. So that was mainly based on clinical embryology. So clinical
Mm-hmm.
embryology focuses more on IVF aspects,
Got it. Got it.
clinical use of it. So yeah,
So the
so
immense curiosity on the developmental biology of how
exactly.
a single cell can evolve, divide itself to become a complex organism.
Yes, that
Okay,
kind
that
of drew me
pure
there.
curiosity led you into embryology,
Yes.
and also close proximity of the college that also had an
Yeah, yeah.
influence. Yeah, kind of. Okay,
so,
nice. What
so
exactly did you learn? How long is the course like of the masters in embryology?
So mine
Like
was a
what?
2 years
Mm-hmm.
MSc program,
Mm-hmm.
which had 4 semesters,
Mm-hmm.
and we had more practical exposure and theoretical exposure,
Mm-hmm.
where we had to learn about embryology.
Got
So it
it.
is not only IVF or ICSI that we learned. We also learned about cell biology, hormonal system within the that influences the reproductive
Yeah.
system. So we had like a full covered course.
Mm-hmm.
The aspects. So yeah, it was good.
Okay.
So I was very happy, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
still happy I chose this
Okay. So
path.
what is the most rewarding like part of your job? Like what part in your job makes you so happy that you sleep, like you get a great sleep, like you get a immense joy. Is there
Okay.
any part in your job like that?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
So one part about IVF is it's not always about positive results or ups. There are a lot of ups and downs that constantly keep happening.
What
So,
are the downs? You mean like
okay.
failure?
Yes, there are IVF failures. So that's something every couple. So we have separate counselors
Mm-hmm.
present who counsel the patients about what percentage chance you have and all that, because
Okay,
you
it's not
cannot.
100%.
No, you cannot not
That's another
always.
myth then.
Yes,
IVF is not
yes, it's
100%.
100. IVF is not 100%. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on the prognosis of the patient,
Mm-hmm.
and each prognosis, there's a different treatment that you can go through. And there are cases where patients have come 2 3 cycles and then conceived.
Oh, okay.
So every patient is
How
different.
much it cost for one cycle?
uh
Average on the
it
Indian market.
depends on different
Clinics,
clinics,
yes.
but I think around 1.5 to 2 lakhs
Oh, that's
if you
okay. If you
include all
compare to.
the medications
Mhm,
and scans and
mhm,
consultations.
mhm.
I think, yeah,
So,
around
what
that
is the
much.
probability of one couple uh, getting a successful result in one cycle, in your observation?
I think it's around 70 80%.
Oh, pretty good.
Yeah,
Not
pretty
bad.
good, but
Okay.
you cannot always tell patient.
So, it's 20,
And
eighty
even that
percent
70
Okay.
80% is going to differ. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I said, it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
always not ups. But as you asked me what is the most rewarding part, is when you get this positive
Hmm.
news that a woman has come positive because of a little help that you
Hmm.
could do
Mm-hmm.
from your part.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
because as a mother, they're going to have the biggest gifts of their life, and you had a
Yeah.
contribution in that is what. So I'd
Hmm.
like to just share an
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
experience, if you don't mind. So before I worked in Mangalore, I have worked in different cities, but I never stayed long enough to be able to see a live baby. So I
Okay.
was always, I've seen photos of the babies that were born,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never seen a live one, held one.
Oh,
So
okay.
once I came to
Interesting.
Mangalore,
Mm-hmm.
so it's been around 2 years that I'm working here. So there was this patient that comes with a baby, and the consultant calls me to her room to see the baby, and I just walk in, and it is such a magical experience. The parents are sitting there holding the baby, the father is holding the baby, and I look at the baby, and it gives me that smile.
Okay.
It's
Did it give
just
you goosebumps?
exactly, my eyes started tearing up, and
Okay.
it is a very special moment.
You had a special contribution to that.
Yes. It's
Like
not a
you.
special contribution, but at least, whatever skill you have, it's aiding someone or changing their life. That thought is, very rewarding.
You
It's what
felt
I
like you
feel.
have assisted in a
Yeah.
somebody's.
Happiness.
Nice. So how many babies have you seen? Like the one you have, uh, you know, uh,
Seen live.
yeah, seen.
Yeah. I have seen around three, no, not 3 to 4.
I
Around,
mean, do you call your patients? I mean, do you call your
nah, nah.
patients or like, can
No.
I see the baby,
I didn't
ma'am?
know, no, we don't
No,
do that.
okay. But they
So,
come on
as
their own will.
embryologists, we don't keep direct contact with the
Mhm.
patients. So, sometimes the patients are themselves so happy. They come with the baby to show it to the consultant, and that time we're curious and we go see, look at the baby.
Mhm.
And, it gives a different kind of joy that,
Okay.
you help change someone's life and
That is the most
contribute.
rewarding part.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
So, yeah, where is the complexity in the IVF procedure or being an embryologist?
Okay, so there's nothing complex as such. So what happens is, even after our masters is done, in our masters also, we don't actually handle the human gametes because they're very precious. They belong to the patients, right? We just practice, or we observe how others do it. So once we come to the IVF labs, at least in the company that I'm working in, you're given enough training before you can handle a patient. So only once they feel that you're worth, like you can easily handle and you do not find any difficulties, are they going to validate you and let you handle a
Good.
patient, because you cannot at any point compromise the patient's treatment just for your practice or whatever it is. So once you get used to it, you do not find anything complex. But every day there's a learning curve. You learn
Mhm.
something every single day,
Okay, what did you learn
and
last week? Yeah, what something new?
as an embryologist, it's not a learning thing. It's more
Hmm.
like improving
Or maybe
your
perspective
skills.
change or
Yes,
something.
or
Okay.
improvising on your skills.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that
Got
comes
it.
with
Yeah,
experience
yeah,
and
yeah.
the number of cases that you do.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
yeah,
what exactly is the role and responsibility of an embryologist in the IVF clinic? Like, where do you come in picture? Where do
okay,
you take hands-on approach from
okay,
which where to where?
all right.
Yeah.
So when you look into a job of an embryologist, or the responsibilities of the embryologist, it includes handling of gametes or whatever procedure you have to do
Mm-hmm.
with the gametes or with the embryos. Also, along with that, it includes looking after the lab, because
Mm-hmm.
in our setup, it's said that the IVF lab is the heart of the IVF clinic.
Hmm.
So that's where all the work happens, right? Where the
Yeah.
embryos are developed, they're nourished, and all that. So, one thing is we make sure that the lab conditions are maintained, be it temperature, humidity,
Hmm.
or,
What is the temperature of the lab?
so ideally, it should not exceed more than 25
Degrees
degrees
Celsius.
Celsius.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And even the humidity needs to be maintained,
Mm-hmm.
because, our embryos are cultured in small droplets. They're
Mm.
microscopic.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
gametes per se
Mm-hmm.
are cultured in small droplets. So these droplets, what we call culture media, contains whatever
Mm-hmm.
essential or non-essential amino acids are required, or whatever nutrients are required for
Mm-hmm.
the embryos. So to maintain that small droplet, it's important that humidity is not too,
Hmm.
high or too low. That could,
Disrupt the.
yes, cause excessive evaporation, or
Mm-hmm.
change the osmolarity of the droplet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why humidity comes in
How
fish.
big is the droplet? Is it microscopic or it can
It's
is
not
it?
microscopic. It's around, in microliters. See,
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay, it's in the
50.
vials, right, or something? No,
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 that's
it's not.
another misconception.
It's in the
Petri
petri dish.
dishes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So that's what we call it, test tube baby, because
Yeah.
initially, they used to do it in test tubes, but we have
Mm-hmm.
upgraded now. We do it in
Okay.
Petri dishes, but
Mm-hmm.
the name still survives as
Got it.
test tube
Got it. Got
baby.
it.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So
So yeah, you
yes,
guys take care of the lab
we take care of the
temperature,
lab. We maintain
humidity.
we look after the equipments that are in the lab. So every
Mm-hmm.
day we make sure
What and
that
all equipments you have in the lab?
so we have incubators.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the physiological
Mm-hmm.
temperature is maintained for the embryos to grow.
That is temperature as close
37
to
degree, close
human
to,
body
yes, that's
temperature.
37 degrees
Mm-hmm.
Celsius. And apart from that, we make sure that we give adequate CO2, O2
Mm-hmm. Mm.
as,
Gaseous exchange. Gaseous
yes,
exchange.
gaseous exchange. So we tried our best to just mimic the
Human body.
uterus, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
human body, right? And apart from, so we have incubators wherein we grow the embryos.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned already, we have laminar airflows, so it's like a
Mm-hmm.
very sterile area where we do our work while handling the gametes or
Mm-hmm.
embryos. Apart from that, we have microscopes, because obviously you'll have to check the
Mm-hmm.
ensembryos, or look into
Yeah,
the
gametes.
sperm
Yeah,
and
you have
quality
to.
and all that. So apart from that, we also have something called intracytoplasmic sperm injection. So like
Mm-hmm.
I told you, we fertilize the egg, right? So in that case, what we do is we select morphologically normal sperm
Mm-hmm.
out of the lot of sperm that we have, and then inject it into the egg.
Mm-hmm.
So for that to happen, we have something called micro manipulators.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you have those joysticks that
Mm.
make your needle move in a microscopic level, so that you're able to select a single sperm and
Mm-hmm.
inject it into the
Interesting.
oocyte.
What is the level of experience you need to successfully, inject the sperm into
Hmm.
an egg? Because these are microscopic, right?
Yes.
So how do you guys handle it? Like, is it easy or is
Yes,
it
it is. So
okay?
for us, like I told you, right from our masters, we are trained
Mm-hmm.
to do all these procedures. So even after that, once we start, joining, or we join our jobs, we keep training with that. At one
Mm-hmm.
point, it becomes, very easy for us. It's
Mm.
like, imagine you're gaming. Okay, I'm not saying
Okay.
it's similar to gaming, just as an
Joystick,
example.
you mean.
Okay,
Mhm.
you have joysticks, you have controls. Now, if you're an initial gamer, you're
Mhm.
going to have difficulty or confusion
Yeah.
about what buttons to press, where to go,
Mhm.
what speed, and everything.
Mhm.
But as you game more and more, you kind of become a pro in it, and then
Interesting.
you stop noticing those minute things. Your hand just goes wherever it has to go when you're gaming. So
Mhm.
for us also it's similar.
Okay, let's talk on that topic. Pretty interesting. So you said you select the sperm from the
Yes.
microscope.
Yes.
So you are the decider indirectly, right? Like in a sense, what do you see in the sperm before you select? Like there could
Okay.
be like number of hundreds of sperms, right?
Yes.
Then the microscopic view.
Yes.
So I mean, what is your decision framework when you select that particular sperm?
Okay. So
Do,
before I
mhm,
tell that, I would
mhm.
like to tell about how we process the semen sample
Okay,
to make
interesting.
sure that we get the best of sperm.
Mhm,
So, like I told you, IVF lab initially, when you asked me to explain it in a
mhm,
layman's term, I
mhm,
told you basically we try to copy what's going on inside our body. So, I don't know, we have learned it again in our BSc, wherein you know how the sperm gets into the female body or the human body is created very beautifully. I'll tell you. So as soon as when a couple is copulating, the male ejaculates into the cervix, right? So out of all the sperm that are present, so right from that point, if you see, I don't know if you have observed, the female vagina or cervix
mhm,
is a little acidic,
mhm.
correct?
Yeah.
While the semen is a little basic or
Mhm,
neutral. So
mhm.
what happens is once it's ejaculated into the cervix, there's liquefaction that occurs. So there's a
What
neutral.
liquefaction? This sperm liquefaction.
Okay, yeah. So if semen once it's ejaculated, it forms. It's actually a coagulant. It's not liquid. It's
Mhm.
like a coagulant,
Yeah,
right?
sticky.
Yes. So as time passes by,
Mhm.
that kind of becomes a liquid state.
Mm.
It doesn't remain that coagulant,
Less
right?
viscous.
Yes. So
Mhm.
at that point, the sperm starts gaining its motility.
Mhm.
So once it does that, out of all the sperms, only the ones with really good motility is going to, go through the cervix, is going to go into the uterus. Now
Mm.
there are millions of sperm.
Yeah.
Okay, only a few tens, 10,000s of sperm are going to get through the cervix, go into the uterus.
Mhm.
Again, in the uterus, you might have cells called anti-sperm antibodies.
Okay.
Now, for the female
Mhm.
body, a sperm is obviously a
Foreign
foreign
invader.
body.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It takes it as an invader and starts attacking it.
Mhm.
So, apart from that, also only a few, that is able to,
Pass
swim,
through it.
pass through
Yeah.
it, is going
Survivors.
to go through the
Mhm.
fallopian tube. Again, your number decreases there.
Mhm.
Out of that, again, a few number of sperm with the really good motility. And once it reaches around the fallopian tube, there are certain biochemical changes that occur in the sperm that
Mhm.
makes it, we call it capacitation,
Mhm.
that allows it to penetrate the oocyte.
Mhm.
So only those sperm that have gone through this uh, process is able to. So it's a very beautiful way.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
It's
body
the
is designed,
survival of the fittest
exactly
starts
to
from there, like the beginning of
exactly
the life
from
itself.
millions of
Yeah.
sperm, so that only that one
Mm.
sperm that is fit,
The one.
the one
The
is
one, sorry.
able to fertilize the eggs.
Yeah.
And through every phase, through the female
Hmm.
reproductive system, sperm are gonna get eliminated based on their
Yeah.
motility or whatever it
Yeah, feels
is.
like a game though. Yeah,
Exactly,
simulation.
it's
Like, you
such a
know.
beautiful the
Yeah.
way a
Yeah.
female body or
True.
the
The whole
reproductive
process. Yeah.
processes. So even in our scenario, what we do is we ask the male to ejaculate,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the semen
Yeah.
sample.
Yeah. Yeah.
After that, we have something called sperm wash that we do.
Okay.
So now this semen sample is going to have your accessory gland secretions in it. So it is seen that the prolong you keep it with the sperm with the accessory glands, it's again going to form ROS,
Hmm.
oxidative stress, and again going to damage. So as soon as we get the sample and once
You
it's
guys wash
liquefied,
it. Mm-hmm.
we wash it.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways that is commonly how it's done is the use of density gradients.
Okay.
So there's a healthy sperm is going to have a particular density.
Okay.
So what happens is when you wash it through density gradient, at different gradients based on the density, the semen, extra accessory gland secretions or seminal plasma is going to get separated. The bacteria, if any, is going to get separated. Epithelial cells, if any, is going to get separated.
Just keep the pure sperms.
Exactly. That too with a good density.
Mm-hmm.
So only those are going to pass through all our gradients
Got
and
it.
come down at the bottom of it. So
Is that a centrifuge thing or
yes,
something?
we
Okay, got
centrifuge it. So at that point, we make sure that you get a better lot of sperm out of millions of sperm that are there.
Okay.
So kind of how how it happens in the body, and then these sperm are the ones again in that
You
you
guys
might
now separate it.
yes. So
Okay.
we separate that pellet, whatever is formed, we wash it again. And out of these again we look at the morphology of the sperm. So if there's any defect in morphology or the motility is not that good, we do not select such sperm. So that's how we select the sperm and inject it into the
Okay, you
oocyte.
select. You see under microscope which sperm is
Yes.
having a
A
good,
good
tail or,
morphology. Yes.
Okay. What do you look in morphology?
So
Like
we
tail structure or
yes, tail structure,
head structure.
midpiece structure, and also the head structure. Yes.
So once you pick the sperm, what's next?
So we have something called micromanipulators. So we have this very fine needle, with a diameter enough to pick up a sperm.
Okay.
So you have those control units where you can give enough suction to take it into the pipette,
Wow, interesting.
and then enough suction to deposit inside the egg.
Okay. How do you exactly suck out this single sperm using that microcontroller? Like, which part do you guys suck? Like,
Okay,
from where
so
exactly?
what we do is, if a sperm is swimming, we try to keep the micro injection on top of the sperm, and we kind of give it a nick at the tail.
Okay.
So it is believed that all the fertilizing factors are present in the tail of the sperm. So when we do that, the membrane of the tail gets disrupted, and there's easy exposure of those factors. And then from the tail, we suck in this thing, because even naturally it's a head that first goes inside
Yeah,
and
you keep the head
fertilizes.
exposed. Okay.
Yes, and then we inject it in such a way that it's head first and deposit inside the
So how
oocyte.
careful is this procedure? Like, now you sucked up the sperm through its
Yes.
tail.
Yes.
Now you have to expose it over the egg, right?
Yes.
How fast is this process? Like, what is the time gap between this process of sucking the sperm tail to exposing it over the egg cell?
It's very less.
Okay.
So at once we say select one sperm, we go to the oocyte, so it will be usually kept in the same dish, and we just insert it. It hardly takes less than a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is under the microscope, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So is there any chance of a failure there in the intracytoplasmic injection?
Yes.
Like,
It's not that okay if you have 10 eggs, 10 mature eggs that you are going to inject, not that 10 are going to fertilize.
Okay.
So that again depends. So if there is say some intrinsic factors within the oocyte or within the sperm which we do not know about, because you can't make that out just by looking at the morphology.
Got it.
So in such cases, there might be a little lesser chances of fertilization.
So
Or-
how many intracytoplasmic transfers you guys have for one patient? Like, is it just one, or you guys try different?
No, yeah. So in IVF, what basically happens is, okay, so in natural conditions, only one egg is ovulated per month, right? But in IVF, the consultant gives you treatment in such a way that you have a little more number of eggs. Because you cannot always, the patient has paid so much, and you cannot always rely on that one egg getting fertilized and forming a beautiful blast worth giving pregnancies. So the consultant, I mean, again, the consultant is a better judge of this, and she can tell you better. But they stimulate in such a way that you get a little larger amount of eggs, not
Okay.
one, say
Mhm.
5, 10,
Mhm.
and depends upon the prognosis again, how many eggs you
Okay.
retrieve. That
Mhm.
is another
So
whole
the
new
patient is
topic.
subjected to hormonal thing, so
Yes,
they can
yes.
stimulate more
More
than one
number
egg.
of eggs.
Okay.
So because out of that, like I told you, said there are 10 eggs. You never
Mm-hmm.
know how many.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so then we culture it in medium,
Mm-hmm.
and after that on daily basis we just observe the embryos,
Mm-hmm.
how they're developing, and once it's in the blastocyst stage is when we transfer it back into the womb or we cryopreserve it. So like I mentioned about density gradients,
Mm-hmm.
so that is one of the way you can do it. Another thing is we have microfluidic devices that have come up.
Okay.
So in that you just need to load your semen sample, and then you have pores. You have a sheath with a pore size
Okay.
enough for a sperm to pass through.
Mm-hmm.
So that again ensures that only the motile sperm
Hmm.
passes through it,
So
and
you guys are
it's
giving
deposited
challenges for the sperms to pass.
exactly, so
Okay.
that you get the best lot of sperm. So that's the main aim.
Got it.
Yeah, so yes, and
Either
also
density gradient or this, or
yes.
both combined.
No, not both
Okay.
combined.
Mm-hmm.
So in some cases, what we do is we just give it a spin so
Mm-hmm.
that the seminal plasma gets separated and
Got it.
this sperm gets settled in the bottom
Mm-hmm.
after centrifugation,
Okay.
and then we use
So
the sperm.
what's after the cytoplasmic injection? Now you have injected the sperm into an egg. So what
Yes.
is the immediate next procedure?
So after that, we culture it in the media, like I told
Okay.
you,
Mm-hmm.
and we try our best not to disturb it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because it needs that constant temperature and constant CO2 level. So there are chances that you try to get it out of the incubator too much, just exposure of light,
Yeah.
and exposure, there might be drop in the CO2
So
level
you
or
keep
O2
it under
level.
darkness, like dark
Yes,
conditions.
yes. So
Okay.
even when you're working, we try to work with very dim lights
Mm-hmm.
or enough lights for us to comfortably work with. And yeah, even exposure we try to reduce it. So this is the conventional way how it's usually done. You
Done.
take
Okay.
it out on regular periods and you just check it. So to overcome this, there are again new technologies, where we have something called the time lapse imaging.
Mm-hmm.
So that's again an incubator,
Mm-hmm.
but it has a camera fixed in it.
Okay.
So
It
at
has a time
regular
lapse of
exact
embryos growing.
yes, so at
Okay.
regular intervals it keeps clicking pictures of the embryos. So when you play it, it forms like a time lapse of those 5 days how the embryo has grown.
Interesting.
So looking at that, you know that okay, if it has followed that morphokinetics, whatever it is supposed to follow.
What is
And
its use exactly? Like, why do you need a time lapse of a
okay, like I
embryo
told
growing?
you, so every time you remove it, there might be you might give
Mhm.
exposure. So it's just to avoid that.
Okay, it is to select the
Yes, and
best embryo or
also
something.
yes, also like I told the word morphokinetics.
Mm-hmm.
So according to there's a way in which a healthy embryo grows. Okay, for example, we check the fertilization after 16 to 17 hours
Mm-hmm.
after it's injected,
Mm-hmm.
and after that on day 3 it is supposed to be 8 cell, and on the day 5 when you again check, it's supposed to form a nice blast. Now what happens is if you see discrepancies in that, it
Number
could
of cells and
yes,
morphology of it. Okay.
exactly. So you take it out on day 3 for example to check the embryo, and you see the number of cells are not good enough. Say there are 4 cell, 5 cell, or in some cases they grow very rapidly, they're already in a morula stage. So which means that it's not following that kind
Pattern,
pattern
or
which
the
it's
growth they're
supposed to follow.
go.
Yeah, whatever morphology is supposed to have at that point of time,
Mm-hmm.
an healthy embryo is supposed to have, that is not being followed.
Mm-hmm.
So here is where the time lapse helps you, because it keeps clicking the photos and you can just see that okay, at this point of time what is the stage, if it has been following that.
So you guys need not observe it in the
Exactly,
microscope. You
microscope
can
every
just
time.
observe in the big
Yes,
camera or
yes.
big screen. And do you guys keep on eliminating the embryos which have not followed the course?
Yes.
Like, okay, this is out. This is not
Okay.
as divided into 8 cells at
All
this
right.
time. So this is not a good embryo. Like, I mean, it failed to grow as a blastula or
Yes,
something. You
yes,
guys
we
keep
do.
on
We just
eliminating.
try to,
Mm-hmm.
bring the best embryos. We
Okay.
culture them together.
Got
So
it.
there's also belief that a good embryo emits paracrine and autocrine
Mhm.
factors.
What was that? Repeat.
Okay, so a good embryo releases autocrine factors.
Okay. What is that?
So it's like there's a belief that because of those factors, it helps the other embryos grow better.
Oh,
So once we have healthy
interesting.
embryos, we
They
try to
have communication, embryo to embryo
exactly, yeah,
communication.
yeah.
Oh.
You have those junctions and all that, no, cell
Hmm.
to cell junctions, and
How
through
how
that,
do they exactly know there is a next? I mean, there is embryo next to me. It's pretty interesting.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this belief that you keep a good embryo with another good embryo, they develop really good.
Hmm.
It's like how have a bad apple in the basket.
Yeah,
It
it's like a
can
parrot
it
story.
exactly
Okay.
it can spoil the
Okay.
other apples. Similarly,
Mm-hmm.
we try to keep the best quality embryos together so
Mm-hmm.
that they develop well. Not that we eliminate the other embryos, we again keep them in culture, again observe them.
Okay.
So yeah.
Hmm. So does that mean if there is a abnormality in the embryo, does all the embryo would have abnormalities?
Okay, so when we look at embryo,
Mm-hmm.
we cannot make out if it has any abnormalities. Like we can like morphologically look at it. For example, in the blastocyst stage, we can see how good the ICM is or how good the trophectoderm cells are. But there are certain tests that can be done that will help you know about the chromosomal abnormality, if any, present in. So we have something called pre-genetic testing.
Okay, you guys do genetic testing.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So what we do from our
At
end,
what stage, like of the
so it can
embryo?
be done either on day 3
Mm-hmm.
or day 5.
Okay.
So what we do is we take a little amount of cells,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called biopsy.
Okay.
So you have the zona pellucida. We try to give laser shots
Mm-hmm.
to give a gap in the zona pellucida.
Mm-hmm.
We have a separate pipette that helps us suck in a little bit of the trophectoderm cells. Say if we are doing
Cells. Okay.
a day 5 biopsy.
Okay. That doesn't damage the embryo?
No, it does
Okay.
not, because you're not taking majority of the cells. You're just taking a small amount.
So when the embryo has grown into hundreds of cells, then only it's
Yes,
safe
yes,
for... Okay.
yes. So
Interesting.
once we have that small set of cells that we have collected, we send it to the genetic lab. So they work on the DNA with that small set of cells that we have. And if all the cells DNA show euploid or
Interesting.
good proper number of chromosome, it's extrapolated towards the whole this thing. The only thing is it's a little invasive, because you
Yeah,
take
you
the
guys
cell out.
Laser shot it.
Yes, but
Interesting.
there's no study that shows that
that cause
post
any
PGD,
impact. or
yeah,
something.
impact on implantation. And recently there has been another way of genetic testing that has come.
Mhm.
So that is called non-invasive genetic testing. So it's a
Okay.
very new concept.
Interesting.
People have started using it.
Mhm.
So I think it was introduced around 4-5 years ago.
Mhm. Pretty cutting edge.
Ah,
then.
yes. So here what happens is, you let the embryos, like I told you, grow in a culture media, right?
Mhm.
So there are going to be some DNA that are, expelled into the culture media.
Mm.
So in this case, you grow only one embryo in a culture droplet, and you take that spent media and you send it for analysis.
That
So
has
whatever
DNA
the free
fragments.
DNA is there, based on that, they give a result. So in this case, it's
Got it.
not invasive as such, but yeah.
Interesting. Oh, okay. I have a very curious question here. Can you determine the sex of an embryo just by looking at the morphology?
No.
Like, can you identify is it a male embryo or a female embryo just by looking at the morphology?
No, you
No.
cannot.
Okay. Thank God.
Even if you could, you're not allowed to disclose the.
Yeah. But still,
it's not-
scientifically
yeah.
curious question.
Even
I
if
mean,
you look
can
at the
you-
gametes and even it comes from the sperm especially, right?
Yeah.
Even at the sperm level, you cannot.
No, not at the sperm level. I'm saying, like, suppose you have injected sperm into the egg.
Okay.
Now egg has formed. That
Okay.
as a zygote turned into an embryo,
Yes.
and they have started dividing.
Yeah.
Making stages by stage.
Huh.
It is in the stages now. So my question is, at what stage? Can you determine the sex of and
No,
like embryo are growing?
no.
No.
Because
Okay.
morphologically, if you look at it, they both look the same.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, when we transfer an embryo,
Mm-hmm.
we select the best morphology one
Mm-hmm.
that would you think would have a highest implantation potential,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Got
transfer
it. Got it.
those.
So what if you guys take it for genetic testing, right?
Okay.
The embryos. Uh, what if there is genetic abnormalities?
All right.
Maybe Down syndrome, or
Okay.
maybe other.
Trisomy
Yeah.
or
What are the common genetic abnormalities you guys look for when genetic testing?
okay. So there are two types of genetic testing. One
Mm-hmm.
is called aneuploidy test. So it basically looks at your chromosome if there's extra an extra
Mm-hmm.
chromosome, say trisomy or
Okay.
monosomy, less
Mm-hmm.
reduction of a chromosome. So in some cases, what happens is, say the parents have a underlying disease or a condition, and
Mm-hmm.
they want to make sure that the child does not get it.
Okay, got it.
So in that case, also you can send your biopsy
Mm-hmm.
sample of the embryos to just check for that particular
So
gene.
there you guys just see number of chromosomes.
Yes. So
Okay.
this is basically done in a genetic lab. So our
Mm-hmm.
part is only collecting the
Genetic material or cells.
cells and
Mm-hmm.
sending it to them. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where
Okay.
they do the
What is
RT-PCR.
the other part of the testing?
Yeah, that's what. Either you can just look at the number of chromosomes to
Or the
make sure
underlying DNA. Okay.
underlying any genetic
Mm-hmm.
abnormality,
Got it.
especially if the parents have it, or there's a family condition
Mm-hmm.
and they doubt that they could be the carriers. In
Got
such
it. Got
cases,
it.
they can get the tests
And
done.
what if there is genetic complexity there? Do you guys have to repeat the cycle again, or you have to?
No. So
No.
what happens is, like I told you, we do not, have one egg or one embryo that we work with, right? We have a few number of embryos.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do biopsy on every embryo and send it as a separate sample, right? And you
Okay.
freeze those embryos separately. So you have the result that comes. So in case the embryo is aneuploidy, you're not supposed to transfer those
Mm-hmm.
because it's genetically not normal. So in such cases, we make sure that only the euploid embryos are transferred into the
How
women.
how how you guys mark embryos where they are, like embryo 1, embryo 2, embryo 3? How do you guys manage that system of location or tagging, which is this embryo? Okay, this embryos, we have taken the sample for genetics here.
Okay.
Okay, if there is a failure in this is the next embryo that we are going
Okay. So
to.
in
How do
that
you
case,
guys
we have
label?
different dishes for each embryo.
Oh, okay, they are
And
made in
you
the different dishes.
exactly, and you make sure that you label them accordingly, and you
Okay.
freeze them separately, so that
Okay.
and even when we freeze the embryos, we make sure that the so we have something called a cryotop in which we freeze the embryos.
Mhm.
It's like a small straw like device, and we make sure that each cryotop is like properly labeled corresponding to what embryo you have frozen in that.
Got it. Got it.
That's how we identify it and make sure that we only transfer the euploid embryos.
Mhm. That's the end of your work, is it?
Yes.
Like sending samples for
Okay,
genetic
yeah. So
testing is the
that
end of.
that does not happen for every patient. Only patient who choose to,
Do
because it's
undergo
going
that
to cost extra, and
sequencing.
yes, exactly.
So where do your
So,
part ends in this
so
infertility
once the
treatment?
embryos are formed,
Mhm.
we either transfer it back into the uterus.
Mhm.
So that's called the embryo transfer procedure, or we can freeze the embryos.
Hmm.
So we have liquid nitrogen that is around minus 196 degrees Celsius. So we have a process called vitrification, wherein we prepare the embryos for it. So it goes into the dormant state in liquid nitrogen. So even after like many years, you can always thaw them, bring back,
Wow. They're
bring
like
them back to life.
wow.
Say in layman
They're
terms.
frozen. Like
Yes.
they are stuck in time.
Yes. So
Time is
whenever
static for
the
them.
female's
interesting.
endometrium, or the lining is ready, when the doctor feels like it's worth transferring, is when she asks us to thaw the embryos. We do that, and then we get the transfer.
Do you guys implant the embryo, I mean the grown up embryo, to female uterus by yourself, or there is a consultant's work?
Okay.
I mean, is it
So
embryologist's work to
okay.
implant an
No,
embryo over?
so implantation has to occur by itself. So what we do is, we have, say for example, we have the embryo in our dish, right? So we have a particular catheters that come. So we load the embryo into the catheter. We hand it toward the, you know, so it's like a setup. So we are in our IVF lab, the clinician is in the OT.
Mm-hmm.
So we load in the embryo inside the catheter. We go to the OT, we hand it over to the clinician,
Okay.
who then puts it through the cervix into the uterus and gives it a push.
Got it.
Okay, so that, you know, the media and the embryo is deposited into the uterus.
At the
And
right place.
yes, at the right place. So again, there's something called the point of implantation, you know, where there's higher chance of uh,
Yeah.
implantation. And then we check once, you know, if there's retention, or you know, the embryo has been uh,
So how do you
deposited.
guys use ultrasound imaging or something, or do you
During embryo transfers, yes, the
Yeah, okay.
consultant does it. It's mainly the consultant's work.
have?
So she does it
Okay.
under ultrasound.
I mean, does the patient has to undergo? What if the uterus is not respond? I mean, doesn't respond well for the implantation? What if there is any complexity cases?
Yeah,
Would the
that
physicians
happens.
get to know them
Yeah.
before or after the implantation?
Yes. So okay, so this also, again, it's more of a clinician's call. But as far as I know, you know, the progesterone level is being checked.
Okay.
So once, say, the progesterone level is good, the clinician also scans the endometrium. So you know, you have those abdominal scans wherein you can see the lining. So it's said that an ideal lining is like a triple line that you can see under the sonogram. So only once those conditions are attained will the clinician, you know, take a call on if embryo transfers
Okay.
were to be done or not done. So that's the checks that she does from her side, she or he. Yeah.
So that completes the IVF, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
And even, you know, there's another myth. It brings me back to one of the
Okay.
myths. So there's another myth that, you know, ART babies are usually abnormal.
Yeah.
One.
I mean,
I think, I
if-
don't know if you have heard that,
if,
or it's
if,
something you
if
believe.
that news, I mean, if that news gets into the schoolboy, I mean, like, you know, that person would be bullied in the school days.
Yeah.
You are manufactured, or, you know, you are a
But
test tube baby.
you know, there are studies that do not show much significant difference. You know, live births that have, comparing live births from IVF versus, you know, normal conception, there's no much difference in abnormal live births that are
Okay.
there. So that's kind of a misconception that people have, that, you know, IVF born babies are usually abnormal,
Abnormal, yeah.
higher chances of abnormalities.
You have any advice for students who are taking up embryology?
What I would like to say is, it's a really
suggestion.
satisfying feel. You know, every day you go to work, you know, you have that excitement, and just make sure that you have a passion for it. You know, just don't blindly take up any course just because someone else has taken up and, you know, is talking. You need to make sure that you have a passion for it. Like, for example, how I told you, how I wanted, you know, I was curious about embryology, and that's how I got into this field. And yeah, it's a really good field with a lot of scope. So in case you are having second thoughts, no, you can
Yeah.
always, and you have a lot of training institutions that have come up where, you know, you can train and, you know, pursue your.
Okay. Thank you so much for the podcast.
Thank you.
And before we end this, do you have any takeaway message for the viewers as an embryologist?
So
Maybe to open their new perspective. Like, this field has opened up a lot of possibilities, and it has, like, it is going to, there are so many things are happening, especially things are so cutting edge. I've heard about things like artificial womb, you know,
Exactly.
mitochondrial therapy, 3-parent babies.
yes.
A lot of things are happening, and you know, it is forcing us to reimagine what is to be a biology parent, you know, biological parent, or things like that.
Yes.
It is going to definitely change the socio-demographic trends for sure. And I would like to end this podcast. Like, do you have any takeaway message for audience out there which can enhance their perspective?
Okay. This is my personal takeaway message that I'd like to give
Okay.
to the society as a whole. So, there's this interesting story in our history of IVF. You know, when the first IVF baby was born in around 1970s, right? Within a few months, the second IVF baby was born in India.
Wow. Okay.
So look at the advancement. But at that point, she was not considered because it was considered a taboo. You know
Hmm.
that you can create life outside
Which year was it?
in 1973,
Okay.
I guess. Even the doctor who, did such an astonishing work, he was not recognized. Even he was not allowed at that point to submit it papers or present his papers in an international conference.
Mm-hmm.
People found it such a taboo. And I feel like, over time, his work was recognized, and, now his work is well known. But at that point, he was given such a stress that he had to commit suicide
Oh.
for such an astonishing work.
Okay.
I mean, people could not just take the idea of creating life outside a human body.
Mm-hmm.
But now I feel that even though it has been, 3 decades,
Mm-hmm.
people still consider it a taboo. Like if there's a couple, they hesitate so much to go to a IVF clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Even the WHO has, claimed infertility to be a disease. So you just have to understand that whenever you have a problem with your body, any part be, you visit a doctor, you get a treatment.
True.
Infertility or IVF is the same thing. If you have a problem, you have problem, conceiving naturally, you
Right.
can always take medical aid. There's nothing wrong in that. There's nothing taboo in that. So I'd like to spread that message
Mm-hmm.
as much as possible, that do not hesitate or think it's something abnormal or unusual that takes
Mm-hmm.
place. It's just a small treatment that aids you, to have a child of your own. It's just a medical treatment. So you need to come out of that taboo or, hesitation that, it's abnormal or artificial
Mm-hmm.
as such. So that's a
Yeah,
take
that's
home
a
message.
beautiful message. Thank you so much for your podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It is a
really enjoyed it.
pleasure.
Yeah.